Agit mir Shabbos Eden.
Shabbos Kodesh.
Before we get started, so I'm actually launching another podcast on the network.
Okay.
And it's called Beyond the Book. And it's a podcast where we do just that. We try to go beyond the book. And obviously we understand the importance of Sfarim and books. Jewish literature has been, will continue being, and is important now as ever. You know, we're very used to reading one-liners and tweets and just very quick things and excerpts, and to actually get the full thought of an author, to go through that process with him is super important. So books are important, and I think authors are important. Authors are important in Yiddishkeit because they're putting something down in a book. They're writing down full thoughts. I think it's very important. And I think
We're the Amma Sefer.
Right.
And our rabbis are called Seifrim.
So that, and I want to get to know them. I want to get to know Jewish authors, and I'm super interested in the different motivations there are to writing book. Even just in the few episodes that I've launched already, or that I've recorded, I've just seen so many different motivations. Whether it's, you know, from some it's an educator standpoint. I want to educate more. I want to touch more people. Other people are just interested. And these are things that are in my head, and to get them down in a book and share those interesting thoughts. They're so interesting to me to get to know, and people's life stories, why people wrote certain books because of how they grew up. There's so much more that goes into it than just what's written. And that's what really interested me. So I launched that. It's called Beyond the Book. You can find it really anywhere you find us. IntentionalJew.com is the network website, and you can find it there. Go subscribe to it on Apple and Spotify. It's going to be up on YouTube eventually as well. Clips from each video, so you can enjoy that as well if you don't want to listen to an entire segment. And just go listen and let me know what you think, and let me know who else I can interview and who else I can talk to and what else I can ask. And this is growing because of your interest. And the more interested you are as a listener, then the more I can grow it and the more I can bring you what I think is going to be really helpful and nice and beautiful. So go check it out. It's called Beyond the Book, and IntentionalJew.com, Beyond the Book.
Behatzlacha.
Thanks. Okay, and then just to recap from last week, a little bit of what we talked about, and I think we got some really nice feedback as well. People who really enjoyed seeing perhaps like the family's feeling and how the family connected over a Pesach Seder, and also what you can do in a Pesach Seder. I think that was nice for people to hear and see.
We got an important piece of feedback from someone, or from people really. It wasn't just one person, but people who don't have their own Masoras from their own families of how to run a Pesach Seder. And they don't have any of these antidotes yet and any of these little stories, because they're just building their families. And they found this to be that they were sort of included in our table and given some of these tidbits that they didn't have in their history. And I think that it was really a great toelis in that respect.
Yeah, Baruch Hashem. And we got the feedback, so we heard you, and we appreciated the time it took to tell us that kind of feedback. So thank you. So last week, really the structure was sort of the goal. Where are you getting to? Where can you get? What can you achieve at a Pesach Seder? What kind of feelings? What kind of simcha? What kind of excitement you can give over to those at your Seder, to yourself, and to your family? And we want to get a little bit more involved in the structure of the Seder this week, and actually give you some vertlach, some things to take home and to repeat, but really not to repeat, because that we'll talk about that, but that's not the idea. The idea is your Seder is not a repetition of a gishmak, a vart, of a nice idea, the Torah thought that you heard. It's giving over an experience, it's giving over a feeling, and so we were going to give you ideas that we want you to digest. we want you to sit on before, when you can't eat matzah anymore and you can't eat chametz and you have a couple of days to get ready for the Seder. So let these ideas sit inside of you and let yourself digest and feel them. And when they come out, it's okay if you repeat them, but that's not the idea. We're not giving you 4 vertlach to say over at your Seder.
I don't remember if I told this over last week, but when I told over that my Rebbeim, Rabbi Will, especially taught us a mahalach in Haggadah. That was very, very precious to me. But I remember one year, Rabbi Matis Blum, who was connected to our school, he had gone to Haggadah as a kid, his brothers were there, whatever, and he wrote a pamphlet, and with, I don't know, 150 vertlach. And they were little, like bite-sized kind of things. And I remember taking that, getting very excited about it, and marking up what night I was going to say which one. and I didn't even memorize them because they were right there. I mean, they were written out in short, pretty short bites. I remember coming to the Seder with that, and in our house, stealing the afikoman was a very, very major thing. Finding the afikoman and then hiding it was a very major thing. And that year, all of my cousins and my sisters decided that instead of stealing the afikoman, they were going after my notes. And at that place in the Haggadah where we would go look for the afikoman, they dumped the afikoman. They didn't even care about the afikoman. They made a plan and they stole my notes. And they would not give them back to me. And it was amazingly painful for me. And I couldn't understand, what's the problem with these notes? These notes are awesome. These verlach are awesome. I want to speak to Aaron's point. It is not about reading a vart or hearing a vart and saying over a vart. That's saying over a vart. It's living it. It's taking the idea of it and putting it inside you days before Pesach, and then letting it spring out of you. Look, some people need notes, so you write a few key words in your notes so that you're not telling over a vart, but that it's something that you're experiencing, and it's something that you're saying over in order to be able to get to a point and to elicit either a conversation, to get people to talk, to get people to comment, to share their own view of it, to argue, whatever. But it's there. We say that if you ask a question at the Pesach Seder, no matter what the question is, if you answer, in order that the children should ask questions, so then
you're always right.
You're always right. And that's even, why did you pick that vart? Because it's going to stimulate the kids to ask questions, stimulate the every participant at the table to ask questions. That's really what the goal is to teach something, to feel something, to bring something out of ourselves at the Seder so that we walk away with something.
Right. And something I learned, I assume it's from us, but it's daunting when you're making a Seder. It's a big night. It's a big Haggadah. There's a lot to say. There's a lot of things to do. And we get maybe overwhelmed with the fact that we have to get through everything. We've had years, even when we were in Chutz La'aretz and we did 2 Sedarim, so we had years where the first night Seder and the second night Seder were we would focus on one thing very strong in the first night Seder, and then maybe rush through or go through the other things fast at a quicker pace. And then the second night, the things we spent time on the first night, we would go through quicker. And then, so if you look at it as a goal, as what you're giving over, so then maybe these things don't fit in tonight to what you're doing. And that's okay. You don't have to spend time on every nuance and every good question and geschmacka question on the Haggadah, which there are tons of. You don't need to. You can pick a few ideas within Magid and a few ideas within the mitzvos and within Halal and within Nirtzah, and you can, once you have a goal, things flow with each other. So that's what we're going to try to do. That was our introduction, but we're going to try to do that today to give you a formula and an idea of sort of the goals you can choose from, the themes that you can build around, some of them. And this is not an exhaustive shir nor podcast, but we're going to give you an idea of what you can choose. And then we're going to pick one and go and try to show you how you would build that theme in some of the lesser known parts of the Haggadah.
I want to give just a tip. one of the things I think is very important to have a successful Seder is not to be so rigid. You have a plan, you've thought it out, you've worked it out, you have even a dream, like you know what it's going to sound like, how it's going to be, and then you get there and your kid's having a meltdown and it's just not working the way it was supposed to work. It's okay. Just go with the flow. It's going to be great in the end. It's going to, if you're sincere about it and you're excited about it, then you'll get over it. There'll be rough patches. There'll be two people that are having a conversation with each other, not really interested in what you're saying.
Not that ever bothered you.
No, never.
No, never. Right.
No, but you.
I've gotten my snaps. I've got.
Okay, but you're my because you were my older son. You were 28. But even that stuff, when you look back at it, there was a person at the Seder who wasn't really connecting in because they didn't have a context. So one of the kids would sit there and explain to them, have a side conversation. Mommy would sit and look with the very little kids, would look at the picture Haggadahs and would be talking to them. And you realize that all of that is part of the picture. Everybody's getting what they need to get. And it's, I think, a critical thing. Don't be rigid in your expectation. And because it's not going like your expectation, you think that it's a failure. It's not true. And it's also, you could have a plan that this is the theme you want to talk about, and you end up in a totally different direction because somebody makes a point out of something and it ends into an amazing conversation. And sometimes those are the most spectacular Siddharim because people got out of them what they wanted to get out of it, not necessarily what somebody was structuring for them, which is also a good thing, but they were they focused on what touched them the most.
Right. I'm sorry I get excited about this, but just one other thing that we used to do, and I think it helped to include everyone, is we put out all the Haggadahs. We had much more than necessary, but we had tons of Haggadahs, and we would put them out before, and we would tell everyone, pick your weapon and pick your Haggadah. I was listening at the beginning, and it was pick your weapon, and people really sat there, and you had people. A memory of mine was the Rosh Hashiva Haggadah, the Art Scroll Rosh Hashiva Haggadah, and you had people who probably never heard of these Rosh Hashiva before, and they were sitting at the Seder quoting from Rabbi Yaakov and Rabbi Moshe, and they were quoting from them because it was what they were using, and they had a way of taking that and bringing it into the Seder and being involved. So let people bring their own Haggadahs, let them be involved, and just become an inclusive Seder, I think is a recipe for success.
Right. We did something else. We also, because we very often had people that the Hebrew was way beyond them, so we would read every paragraph, and we had a nusach for the Haggadah. We would read every paragraph, and then go around the table, and probably until the Pesukim, but we would go around the table and have everybody read the paragraph in English, and then sometimes I would use that as a springboard, and I would say to them, okay, what does it say to you? What does that paragraph mean to you? And put people on the spot a little bit, but it was okay because after the first person got put on the spot, everybody else was okay with it. One of my daughter-in-laws sent in that she used to calculate and try to figure out exactly which paragraph was going to be hers. And because she got very nervous having to read it out loud and then knowing that I was going to ask a question. So it used to drive her crazy that she never ended up with the paragraph that she thought she was going to end up with.
Right. It would always change or somebody else would pass.
Right.
Okay, so let's talk tachas here. What are some of the goals and some of the themes that one can achieve or try to achieve on Leil HaSeder, on the night to give over perhaps this Emunah and this faith in HaKadosh Baruch Hu? What are some of those? What are some of the themes that the Seder could do?
So ultimately, I think that we have to get to the place of realizing that HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves us. We're part of a nation, and no matter what pathway you take to get there, but that's the end feeling, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that He takes care of us. He worries about His people. We are His people. Tonight is the birthday of the Jewish nation, and we were born. We were put together tonight. And the kids need to hear this, and people need to hear this. People need to know that it's not just a thing called Jewish, but that we're part of an Am Nivcha. We're part of God's. We're chosen people. We are part of God's people. He loves us. These are things and themes that need to come out. But I think that for me, it's always worked to have a little bit of a mahalach if I'm going to be madgish points from the paragraphs, the very important thing to me is to see a structure in the Haggadah. I've even written up some stuff on this, but to see the structure of the Haggadah, that first is the questions, then the answer, then the paragraphs that deal with how you're supposed to tell the Haggadah, of when you tell the Haggadah, of how you're supposed to do the mitzvah, and then the actual telling of the Haggadah, and the fact that it's a little bit of a weird structure the way you tell the Haggadah, that you tell over the story of the Exodus of Egypt, not really the whole story of the Exodus, and we don't get the psukim from Shmos. We get the psukim from Devarim, and it's all built around 4 psukim. And I show this at every Seder. I take an art scroll Haggadah, which does a beautiful job with this, that they make the 4 psukim bold, and then all the sub explanations of them, and what Chazal say about the pasuk and the drashas, all of those are in smaller fonts, and you can see, like with your own eyes, you can see the structure. It's not hard to point out, and that, that's like a basic thing that I want us to feel, because when you have a context, and now the reason why I'm saying this paragraph over is because of this and because of this, so then I think that's a very important thing. You can't really understand things if you don't understand the context, but there also has to be a point, like a sub context that has to tie everything in, and it could be Hakarat Hatov. Hakarat Hatov is an easy one, because you see in every paragraph, even in the paragraphs that talk about the rabbis that told over the Haggadah all night, and Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, and all of those, you can weave the theme of Hakarat Hatov into every one of those paragraphs. Dayenu is like a classic. You got to ask on Dayenu. Everybody has to ask this question. And if you haven't at some point in your life yet asked this question, so then it's critical to discuss it as Seder. Then what does Dayenu mean? Dayenu, it's enough. No, it's not true. We are, in observant Judaism, it would not have been enough for God to take us out of Egypt and then just left us in the desert. Okay, guys, you're on your own. Have a good time. Like, that wouldn't have been enough. And to take us to Mount Sinai but not give us the commandments, that wouldn't have been enough. To bring us into Eretz Yisrael but not give us a base of Bechira, that's not enough. So then what are we saying? Dayenu, that it would have been enough. And the very simple understanding is that every single one of those things would have been enough to make a yontif. That a whole Pesach, a whole yontif, just for the fact that he took us out, just for the fact that he brought us through the desert, just for the fact that we came into Eretz Yisrael, and then the next paragraph, halachas kama v'kama, that he didn't do one of those things, he did all 15 of those things. And the concept of Hakarat Hatov, how are we supposed to feel, Hoidu Lashem Kitov, when we sing the Hallel, to recognize that we're so appreciative of this, how lucky we are that we are this nation. That is a beautiful and easy theme to be able to weave through the Haggadah.
Right, we're not going to go through every part here, but if you take Hakarat Hatov and then you look through the paragraphs, you can see this theme, just weave, and you can weave it through. And again, if you would take this and say, okay, we're going to get to a place where at the end of the night, when we say Hodul Hashem, and when we say in Hallel Nirtzah, thank you HaKadosh Baruch Hu for everything, we've experienced that, we've said it, we've spoken about it for 2 hours, for 3 hours, we've spoken about it, and we've experienced that, then you've accomplished something great through the night. So Hakarat Hatov is a great theme.
Right, when I was talking about those 4 psukim, in those 4 psukim, they're taken from Bikurim. Bikurim, the whole mitzvah is Hakarat Hatov. You got a 2-hour conversation there of explaining Bikurim, explaining the whole concept of Hakarat Hatov, that you take the first things that you made, and instead of you enjoying them, you give them to God. That's huge. And you can instruct and teach about Hakarat Hatov in such a real kind of way. Okay, that was one. What would you say? What would you say is a theme that if you were running a Seder, you would like to weave through, or one of the ones you remember as a kid?
For me, it's Emunah is always an important one. That faith in God, that you really understand. And for me, it's always through the makos, through the plagues. That if you understand the abilities and what God has, and again, it comes back to Hakarat Hatov and to being grateful. But the stage before being grateful is you have to know what you're being grateful for. And you're being grateful for this awesome God who doesn't just plop us here in this world, but he takes care of us. He worries about us. He thinks about us. And that's apparent from the whole story. All the way back to Avram Avinu, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was intimately involved in every aspect here. From Avram to the Gullus, to the actual slavery in Egypt, and then all the way to the Geula, and then to where we get to at the end, to a place where he brought us to Eretz Yisrael, and then he gave us the Beis HaMikdash, and that when you understand the Emunah is very important from this night, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the faith that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has and will take care of us.
If you let's say take that idea, and now you just sit there with an English, just read through, forget about all the commentaries, just read through and say, how can I bring Emunah out of this? How can I bring Emunah out of this? The Haggadah, it just dances in front of you, and it's every theme that way. Depending on the glasses you put on, if you really think about it, you will see that concept in everything. My father, Al Shalom, was an artist, and I would walk into a room, and I would see whatever, walk into a room like this, and I would see bookshelves and I'd see books. My father would see the different patterns of colors. He would see, oh, that shelf is buckling a little bit, and this was put up this way, and this is made out of this kind of wood. He would see a totally different picture. We would go to the Mets games, right? We spent a lot of time in Shea Stadium, and because I certainly love baseball. I love going to baseball games, and my father would go with us, and he would bring a pad, and either watercolors or pencils, or colored pencils, and he would draw. Spend the game drawing, and when you looked at it, he was drawing. You could see the stadium, but he was drawing colors, because that's what he saw. He saw patches of colors and washes of colors. And if you look at a lot of his art, you see that also, that he'll take colors, weave it through pictures. Those were his glasses, and that's the way he saw the world.
Amazing.
And you do that in learning also. If you have a certain, the Abarbanel, they say that much of the commentary of the Abarbanel was colored by his experiences in the Spanish Inquisition, and that he saw the world that way, and that every episode in the Torah spoke to him in a lesson and something to understand what he was going through. And I think that in our own lives, when you take a theme and you start to look at a parsha, you look at a Haggadah, you look at things like that through your life and through your through your glasses, it looks a certain way, and you see beautiful things. And when you look at the issue of Emunah, and when I look at the issue of Emunah, and we now share ideas in the Haggadah, we're gonna have multiple ideas and very different ideas, because the way you see it and the way I see it are going to be very different.
Right, and that's the point. Right,
and that's why I encourage everyone. Give yourself some time to be creative. You do have to know something, but you don't have to know a lot, because it's a lot. A lot has to do with your feelings. And if you have a couple of Haggadahs that have commentary, and by the way, if you're a beginner at this, then the art scroll, the basic art scroll Haggadah, has many of the simple pshatim. The Haggadah with answers, by Rabbi Will, I think that's one Rabbi Will's title. That also has many basic questions.
Well, anybody listening at this point, we'll link to those. We'll put a link to them either from Amazon, or we'll put it straight from the Art School website. So it'll be in the show notes below. You could just find that easily, and either purchase or just notice that you have one at home like that. But
right, and yeah, I mean, I think that you get an idea, and even Reb Moshe or Reb David's Haggadah, and you look at that, but you're looking at it through a certain kind of eye, so then it looks a certain way. I'll tell you another theme that I think is and I just decided to throw out a few. Freedom. Spending the night on the concept of freedom, of what it means.
What is Cherus? What is freedom?
Everything about tonight is to achieve Cherus, is to achieve freedom and to feel a sense of freedom. How do we feel a sense of freedom? What is freedom?
Are we free today?
And correct. One of the favorite things that I tell over is, you take a person has all the money and ability to be able to do whatever they want to do, but they can never follow through with anything that they decide. So is that person free? No, that person is enslaved to themselves. And I give a few mishalim like that. And I say you take two Jews. One of them's name is Yosef, and they're sitting next to each other. They have two prison cells, and one of them's name is Anatoly, and they're sitting next to each other in a Russian prison, and they have no Haggadah. They have nothing for Pesach. They have minimal amounts of memory of Pesach, and they together, though they're not supposed to communicate, they together write down the things that they remember from the Haggadah. And then weeks before Pesach, if they got a raisin in the meager food that they got, they would take the raisin out of their food and they would put it in a cup, and they would soak the raisins. And then they took cardboard and used it for matzah. And then there was a little piece of a green vegetable. They would take it and put it away to be able to use it for Pesach. And with all these little pieces, they put together a Seder. And they sat that night and they said, Hashata Hacha, now we're here. L'shana haba b'Eretz Yisrael, next year in Eretz Yisrael. And at the end of the Seder, L'shana haba b'Yerushalayim haBenuya. Were they free or were they prisoners? They were the two freest people in the entire world that night, because there was nothing that could hold them back. There was nothing that they would allow to get in the way of what they knew was the right thing to do. They had to modify, they had to compensate, but they were free to be who they wanted to be. Freedom is not the freedom from, freedom is the freedom to. The freedom to be able to do what you know is the right thing to do, to have control on yourself and on your soul and on your spirit, to be able to do what needs to be done. In every single paragraph, when you talk about the Chacham and you talk about the Rasha, you ask the question, are they free? When you in all of the teachings of the Haggadah, it's teaching us about what freedom is. I think for a teenager, I think for everyone, this is an incredibly valuable discussion and an incredibly valuable point to make, that tonight we're celebrating freedom, and we are free. We are free people now. We don't always allow ourselves to be free. We have things that shackle us and hold us down. When you get to the paragraph of Chayav Adam Liras Esatzmo, I mean, that's so incredibly rich. You turn to your family and you say to them, "Really, I have to look at myself like I'm from Egypt, I came out of Egypt." I had this chus. I went to Europe and went to Auschwitz 3 times, and I will tell you that I tried. I stood on the Platz when they came off of the trains. In the barracks. I had a very difficult time visualizing myself and what the conditions there must have been, because I never experienced anything like that. I never experienced anybody barking at me, threatening to shoot me if I didn't do what I was supposed to do. I just don't know what that stress is. I don't know what that feeling is. If I couldn't do that for the Holocaust, how am I supposed to put myself back to Mitzrayim, to put my back, 3,500 years? I don't even know the clothes of Mitzrayim. I can't even visualize what they were wearing in Mitzrayim. How am I chayav adam liras esatzmo ki liyotzim in Mitzrayim? Right. So, and you explain what a Mitzrayim is. You explain Meitzarim. You explain the concept of things that hold you back, of the straits that constrain you and don't allow you to soar. And if through the discussion tonight we talk about how you're in control, you are the one, you are the one that makes your life happen along with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but you've got to make the hishtadlus, you've got to move yourself. That's freedom. Freedom is not letting anybody take that away from you. I think that accomplishment is a tremendous accomplishment, and allows you then to sing Hallel with an incredible joy. Nishmas kol chai. I mean, you just can soar, because now you're in the driver's seat. Okay, that's another big one. Yeah.
Okay,
You
so
tell me one.
so far we have Hakarat Hatov, Emunah, we have freedom.
Right.
Okay, those are good good themes to build around. What else do you have?
I'll tell you two other beautiful ones. And suffering brings greatness. That the suffering that we went through, and to explain and to describe, because mascha b'gnus u'misayim b'shavach. You have to start with the gnus. You have to start
That the Seder starts with the more negative parts of where we came from as a nation.
That's right.
And then it ends with the beautiful parts and what we were able to accomplish, but that it only through, perhaps not that it happened to have been like this. It happens to have been we came from a tarach and we came from Ovdei Avodah Zara, but rather that it's because we came from there and it's because there was the darkness that we came from that we were able to achieve the greatness of Yetzias Mitzrayim and of the understanding of and this connection to God was because.
As soon as we recognized the darkness, and as soon as we were able to understand that we were dark, and we called out to God, and that moment, the next is Vayotzienu Shem Elokeinu Misham. God took us out of there. You know, there's a Chassidish thing and I've pointed this out at the Siddharim, that there is when you get to the paragraph that we called out to God, so V'nitzak, right towards the end of the story, so that stop for a moment and just think, and I do this at Siddharim and ask people just to stop and think. There are dark parts of our lives. There are difficult parts. There are difficult things that we go through. So do what they did in Mitzrayim. If when they did it in Mitzrayim, it worked. Call out to the Rebbeinu Shalom. And sometimes people cry.
You even asked us once to close our eyes and just imagine you were there.
Just to visualize, to feel that sense of, you know what, it hurts. It hurts. There's something dark is going on inside of me. I can't talk about it. I can't express it to everyone. But I can stop right now and know that everything is aligned right at this moment. The heavens are open, and now is the time for me to call out, because this is exactly what I'm saying in the Seder. This is what they were experiencing, and this is what I am experiencing. This is the night. The Leil Shimurim. Leil Shimurim doesn't just mean that God's protecting us. This is the night where everything is guarded and protected. Everything is open tonight. And I think that these kinds of things, to point out and to bring your Seder through, I think these are critical. This is not about recitation. I'm telling you, it hurts my soul. Mamash hurts me when I hear people say, yeah, in my Seder we say everything. But if you don't feel a thing, then you're saying everything. You got a check box check mark in your box, shkayach. But that's not the point. The point is to get somewhere, to feel something. It's hard to sustain this throughout the entire Seder. You
Granted,
go in and
right.
out, in and out, in and out. But if you walk away with something, you look back at the Seder and you say, holy schmoly, man, that was something. Okay, I'm going to give you one more. Also a very easy one to weave into paragraphs. I'm going to do it a little bit, just in the beginning. The understanding that every suffering that the Jewish people have undergone is somehow, the Chafetz Chaim says this clearly, and this is a basic understanding for us, is somehow connected to the original sin. And when I say original sin, it's not what you think. It's to the sin of Mechiras Yosef. And that there is a component of sinah, a component of the dissolution of the Jewish people, and of the fissuring of the Jewish nation, that has caused our suffering. We went into Mitzrayim in order to be able to fix that, and that's been with us the whole time. It's been with us for 3,500 years. And if we can recognize that, if we can bring ourselves together, so then that is Geula. When the nation is together, anytime we see the nation together, those were moments of Geula. When we accepted the Torah, Kishchad B'Lev Echad, we stood at the precipice, right there, could have been Yemais Mashiach. Had we held on to that, that would have been Yemais Mashiach. And that inspiration of the realization that there is some of this that's in my hands. Yes, we're waiting for Gula. We have to daven for Gula. We ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu to be Goyal. But at the end of the day, there are some steps that I need to take. And one of those steps is to come to an understanding that I have helped plunge myself into gullus, and I can get out of it by attaching myself to other people. Now you start right from the very beginning. We start with dipping. We dip twice. And the whole concept of dipping twice is that we went into Mitzrayim with a dip and we came out of Mitzrayim with a dip.
The dipping of Yosef's
coat into the blood. That was the beginning of the gullus. And then when we took the Agudas Azov and we dipped it and we sprinkled the blood on the door, and that was our Yitzia. That was taking this different materials, putting them together, which was what was happening to Klal Yisrael at that night. And to take that and to dip that, our Mesiras Nefesh, to dip that on the doors, that's the way we get out of it. And just there, and then you pick up the matzah, and you say Hol Lachma Anya. This, not ki holach manya, like some of the Gersos. This is holach manya. This is the bread of affliction, the achalo avasana, that they ate in Arad Mitzrayim. And why are we bringing this up now? Because Golsa Yehuda Me'oini. We went into Gullus because of Oini, because of the way we dealt with Aniyim, the way we dealt with people that weren't on the level that we felt we were on. People that we looked at as being beneath us. And we plunge ourselves at the very beginning of the Seder into Gullus. I don't know if I asked it last week, but when you say Halach Ma'anya, and you say Kol Dichvin, anybody who needs, come to my Seder. You can't say that, because you're not, first of all, you're not allowed to invite people now, because the Korban Pesach has to be ala Menuyov, right? It's got to be on people that were on a list. Before Yontif started, you couldn't, in the time of the Beis HaMikdash, you couldn't be standing in the Beis HaMikdash when Yontif started and turn to a person and say, you have a place to go tonight? The person says, no. Oh, come with me. Oh, sorry, can't invite you.
Can't eat the Korban Pesach, right?
It's too late. Pesach. Yeah. That's right. So how exactly can we say, how do we start our Seder with this? And then, you knocker, you. Look what you're doing. You have your windows, right? Your windows are closed, your door's locked, and you make this magnanimous invitation. Anybody in the whole world, you could be in China, I'm inviting you to come to the Seder. Really? Why don't you say this in shul? Why don't we say this Shabbos Haggadah? Everybody stands up on the chairs and say, Kol Dichvin, if there's anybody here that doesn't know what they're going to do, Yontif, please come to me. But we do it by Seder night because we're making a declaration. Halach ma'anya, we're back in the same place. This is the bread of affliction. This is not like the bread of affliction. We are in Gullus. That's why I can invite you now. And this invitation is not an invitation, because that happened last week. This is a declaration that I'm getting out of this Gullus.
And I'm going to do it with you.
And that's how I'm going to get out of this Gullus. You're going to come to my Seder. We're going to be together, and we're going to get out of this Gullus. That's a tough way to start the Seder. Tisha B'Av. That's correct. You look at your Seder plate, and there's an egg. And you're going to eat that at the beginning of, you can eat a hard-boiled egg at the beginning of Shulchan Aruch. Many people have the custom. And the reason that we eat an egg is because the night of Tisha B'Av is the same night as Pesach night, the same night of the week. And we link the two to remind us that if we don't get the message of the dipping, if we don't get the message of having to have to rectify that dipping, then we're going to be spending Tisha B'Av in 6 months. We're going to be spending Tisha B'Av on the same night of the week. We're going to be spending Tisha B'Av. And it gives me an opportunity to look at it and say, but I don't want to do that. So now how do I get out of this? Why is this Gullus different than every other Gullus? And now I look at every Gullus that ended, and this Gullus that I'm in now, which has never ended, has been going on for 2,000 years. And I analyze the Gullus, and I look at it and say that in every other Gullus, we didn't have to dip. We didn't have the same kind of sinah. But now we dip twice because we need to get the message of look how you got in and this is the way you're going to get out. And in every one of those questions of the Manishtana, We're going over the why this galus is different. We indulge ourselves more than we ever indulged. We have the bigger Yetzer Hara now than we ever had. We look at that and we understand, oh my gosh, I'm in galus. Yeah, maybe I should put on sneakers, sit on the floor.
Right.
Tisha B'Av, it's not Pesach. Avadim ayinu lefarei b'Mitzrayim. We were slaves to Parai. V'yotzienu Hashem Elokeinu misham biyad chazaka v'zoyna tuya. V'yotzienu Hashem Elokeinu, our God, took us all out of there as one package. What were we doing the night of Yetzias Mitzrayim? We were giving birth to the Jewish people. And where did we give birth to the Jewish people? In our houses. Mishpache by Mishpache. Every family. That's the backbone of Klal Yisrael. People, what's a Mishpache? Shivcha. The root of the word Mishpache is Shivcha. What's a Shivcha? Shivcha is a maidservant. Maidservant is somebody who is there to take care of you. And when we feel like that about each other, I'm here to take care of you, that's a Mishpache. And that was born on Pesach night, bringing us all together, making us as one unit, and as one unit we walked out of Mitzrayim. And that's the encouragement. We're in Gullus, but let's read through this book, because let's understand the steps we need to take to band ourselves together.
Meradik.
Two more little things.
Also, just to add, the rush of the wicked son.
Oh.
What's the wicked son's issue with what's going on here in the Seder is Lefisha Hotzi Atzmo Mina Klal. He took himself out of Klal Yisrael. He took himself out of the group and the whole. And that's exactly why he's a Rasha. Because he doesn't see himself as part of this Geula, as part of this unit that's going to bring the Geula.
Beautiful. Look at the story that we tell about Rabbi Akiva and all the rabbis in Bnei Brak. What's going on there? So people love to talk about Bar Kochba and, all that stuff. That's something so simple and beautiful. You know why those rabbis were all sitting together? Why we make a point out of those rabbis sitting together? Because every one of them was really pater from the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim. Because they were either Bnei Gerim or they were Shevet Levi. So they didn't have to say it, but they understood that they're part of Klal Yisrael. Why do we say the Arba Banim? Because what is a tzibur? Tzadi, Beis Resh. Tzadikim, Beinanim, Rishayim. You need everybody. That's Klal Yisrael. And tonight, you could be my biggest thorn in my side. You could be my Rasha. Baruch HaMakom. Thank you, God, for giving him to me. Because thank you, God, for making us a tzibur, for making us a whole people. And that's what I have to commit myself to. I could spend the next 5 hours on this. Paragraph after paragraph after paragraph is talking about respecting other people, connecting to other people. Look at the paragraph, Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah.
But the idea is we're giving you the seed. We're planting the seed that you can take and spend your Seder with that. Yeah, Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah.
Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah. He's
Kiben Shivim Shana, right?
Kiben Shivim Shana. He's an 18-year-old kid, and he's made into the head of Sanhedrin, and he's not angry, but he recognizes that he didn't have the strength to be able to get the Chachamim to agree with him on a certain practice until Ben Zoma came along and was able to tie them all together. And he was so excited about that. He didn't say, I couldn't do it, and not until Ben Zoma came. There was no remorse, no anger, because he recognized there was a respect that he had for the shita of the Chachamim, and he recognized that there was a machlekes here. You could pull this out of every single paragraph. And like Aaron said, that's one of the themes of tonight, by the way. Tzei ulmad. Tzei ulmad. Go out and learn this. Go take your idea, and we say it in Haggadah. Tzei ulmad, because you're not going to see it on the surface. Go take your tzei, get out. Go outside. Go into the world. Look. And then ulmad, you'll be able to see it. And that's what you have to do with preparing for the Seder. I hope that this just inspires everyone. These are simple things. There's no guidance here. Just take your eyes and your heart and look at your Haggadah. And look at your family. Look at your guests. Look at the people that are around you. If your family is made up of a bunch of ma'aminim that have, bad dispositions, so then you don't need to be madgish the Emunah. I'm just giving you an example. Talking about the midos, talking about the love, that might be the way to go. If there are family of the most loving people, but God doesn't really play into it, then pull God out of it. But you know what you want to instruct, you know what you want to inspire with. Now say ulman, go find that in the Haggadah, because it's there. I turn the thing over and over and over, because every message about the foundations and the fundamentals of the Jewish people are there in this story.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And thank you for listening, our guests at the Shabbos table. And we hope that this gives you, like my father said, like the father said, that this gives you the seeds and gives you the ideas to start building around. If you do need help setting up a structure and setting up and going through ideas and finding the right Haggadahs and the right ideas to put into these themes, please reach out to us at intentionaljew@gmail.com, and we will forward the message to the right person, not me, and get you the answers and the help that you need. Please reach out. We've already had people who've reached out who've asked for help, and that's what we're here for. We're here to try to help you enlighten and help bring more of this awesome feeling to others. So thank you for listening, and
Pass the macaroons.
Pass the macaroons.